Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Friday, the 17th of September, 2010. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the U.S. It's 4:30 p.m. in London. In Bermuda, it's 12:30 p.m., where you're probably huddled under your concrete shelter somewhere. And in Mexico City, it's 10:30 a.m. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL instant mail address is CATEX-TV. On this day in history, in 1862, the Battle of Antietam occurred in Maryland in the American Civil War. 23,000 Americans fell that day. It's the single most costliest day in American military history. Just before we went on the air, our producer Frank Mazzio intercepted a bulletin saying that the boards of United and Continental have now formally approved the merger. This means that the shareholder vote, which did occur, has now proven to be enough to have the merger occur. So probably in 3 weeks' time, we might begin to see livery changes on the sides of the airplanes, and we'll create the biggest airline in the world. Now we'll go to our main news. It's Hurricane City here. Look at this picture. Here we go again. It's the same thing we've been saying all along. Got Carl all the way to the west. It's hitting Mexico. We'll talk about that. Igor is getting ready to blast Bermuda with the winds possibly as high as 150 miles per hour. And Julia is still pretty darn strong. It's almost a 4. It alternates between a 3 and a 4, but it's not threatening anything just yet at all. And way over to the east is another tropical depression just south of the Cape Verde Islands that has about a 40 or 50% chance of developing into something, but we'll keep our eyes on that. All right, let's look at them individually. Here comes Carl. Carl has been projected to be getting ready to hit the Mexican Gulf Coast at about 90 minutes from now, about 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. State oil giant Pemex has made some platform evacuations out there in the Bay of Campeche. It's really blasted the Yucatan Peninsula with tropical rain. There's been some localized flooding and landslides there. The National Hurricane Service said that it has upgraded Carl to a Category 3 storm. It's got top sustained winds of 120 miles per hour. It will undoubtedly when it crashes ashore in Veracruz in about 90 minutes, it's going to end up bringing some flooding to parts of Belize and to northern Guatemala. All right, let's go to Igor. I'm going to read while we have this map up, I'm going to read something I just pulled off the Royal Gazette website down in Hamilton. In a noon update, remember Bermuda's an hour ahead of us, so this is only 32 minutes ago. The Bermuda Weather Service said that Igor's closest point would be at 1 a.m. on Monday, when it would be about 10 nautical miles to the east of the island. The Bermuda Weather Service said that maximum winds would be between 120 to 150 miles per hour, with the storm moving at just 8 knots. A meteorologist for the Weather Service in Bermuda said that the island should prepare for what he called a virtually direct hit, adding that the island could see 37 hours of gale force winds starting Sunday. AccuWeather hurricane expert Joe Bastardi, he's well known, said that Bermuda should be prepared for, quote, a several-day siege of damaging winds and waves. So that's not going to be a good situation there. It undoubtedly will rival the effects of 2007's Hurricane Fabian storm, which shut down the Bermuda airport for several days and caused several $100 million worth of damage. So our thoughts and prayers are with our friends in Bermuda, and we'll obviously keep tracking this, and hopefully on Monday we will not have much of a story to tell. Maybe it'll skirt the island. Let's go a little bit further to the east. Here's Julia. This is weakening out there. It's still the storm path, as you see, is scheduled to take it up over the northern Atlantic a little bit to the east, where although the weather is, the water temperature is still warmer than usual, it's certainly cooler than where it's coming from. So I think that by Monday we'll be able to strike this one and forget about it. Well, from natural damage to man-made damage in Sri Lanka, the island off the southern tip of India, 3 containers filled with explosives meant for road construction actually detonated this morning outside of a police station. Ended up killing 25 people. Most of them were policemen. Apparently the accident was, the blast was an accident. It was not deliberate. A nearby agricultural office crowded with farmers who had come in to buy fertilizer was completely destroyed. They are still counting bodies there. It's unclear what triggered the blast of the containers. The containers were actually stored by the police station for safety reasons, and the explosives, which were dynamite, were intended for blasting out rocks for a road construction project being carried out by a Chinese construction company. At least 2 of the dead at this point are known to be Chinese. I guess if there's one consoling factor there, that it was not a terrorism incident, with the Tamil Tigers having recently been vanquished in Sri Lanka. There has fortunately been, knock on wood, no incident of that type. AXA in France is among the companies being sued by the Lehman Brothers administrators. They're seeking the return of dividends paid out to AXA shareholders in 2008, a few weeks before Lehman collapsed. AXA was not a significant Lehman shareholder. However, through its U.S. asset management business, it had stakes representing a 7.25% in Lehman. This is according to Bloomberg. So Lehman Brothers Holdings, which filed the lawsuit, claimed that the investment bank was already insolvent, i.e. Lehman Brothers was insolvent when they paid out the dividends to shareholders in August of 2008, including $8.5 million to AXA. Make sure you understand that I said that correctly. The investment bank, the bank in bankruptcy now, is suing the people that received its dividends because they, the investment bank, was already insolvent when they paid the shareholders the dividends. They now want the money back. That's like going to a restaurant and eating, paying your bill, and having the chef come back out and get you on the street and say he'd like the dinner back. It's thought that Lehman is suing dozens of companies right now, just in expiration of the 2-year deadline to address so-called fraudulent transfer cases. In all, 50 lawsuits have been filed regarding more than 200 transactions. As you know, the other day we announced that it was the 2-year anniversary of the Lehman bankruptcy. Well, here's a story you haven't heard from for a while, thank goodness. The BP spill, the Macondo spill. Here's the rig. This is the rig that's drilling the relief well, and believe it or not, last night, Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen said that the relief well that, let's make sure we go through the facts, everybody remembers them, went through 3 miles of water, then hit the ocean floor, then went through 2.5 more miles of seabed, has actually intersected the blown out well. So they've been able to confirm that, in fact, the data shows that the 2 wells are joined. The next step will be to pump mud and cement down through the relief well to seal the ruptured well permanently from the bottom. As you know, the gusher was contained in mid-July after a temporary cap was successfully fitted on top of the well. The blown out well cannot be declared dead until it's sealed from the bottom. Hopefully by the end of this weekend that will be finished. We reported earlier in the week about a blast in Turkey, a roadside blast that blew up a minivan and killed 9 victims. Well, here's a picture of the funeral of one of the victims that was going on today. Believe it or not, there was a bomb explosion at this funeral that severely injured 3 Turkish policemen. The blast also occurred near where the minivan explosion occurred, near the city of Hakkari in the eastern part of Turkey. The police apparently were also attacked by protesters with rocks at another funeral, and they ended up having to use water cannons to disperse them. So that continues to be an ongoing problem there. The stock market in New York is up a tiny bit. It's up just less than a point, so that's supposedly some good news. We'll go to a word from our sponsors, and then we'll come back with the rest of the news. Harvard professor and Wall Street critic Elizabeth Warren has accepted the job of setting up the Consumer Financial Protection Agency for President Obama. She declared that the time for financial, quote, tricks and traps is over. Obama is going to announce Warren at about 1:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time today. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is actually Warren's idea. It's going to have broad powers to enforce regulations covering mortgages, credit cards, and other financial products. Warren is reviled by many on Wall Street for her calls to crack down on abusive lending practices by financial firms. She's not going to be directing the agency. She's going to help set it up. She's being selected as an advisor, so the president had managed to sidestep exposing her to a congressional confirmation practice. This would have been fine fettle for the Republicans. Well, in Moscow, the Russian state-owned company called Russian Technologies, which manages the government's stake in dozens of regional airlines, announced this morning that it is going to buy 50 new Boeing 737 next-gen airliners in a deal worth as much as $3.7 billion US. The deal also includes an option for an additional 35 737s. The jets will be leased to Russia's biggest airline, Aeroflot. The government owns 51% of that, and will help Aeroflot upgrade its increasingly aging fleet. Well, if you lived anywhere in the New York area this morning and turned the TV on this morning while you were getting ready, you know that the chatter on the TV all morning was about the possible tornado that went through the New York metro area late yesterday afternoon. Well, it went right through, all right. One person ended up being killed. A tree came crashing down on her car when she was driving on a highway near Kennedy Airport. Con Ed said that 20,000 customers remained without power this morning. A total of 35,000 lost power during the storm. A number of funnel clouds indicative of tornadoes were seen in Queens and on Staten Island. Very large trees, as you saw, snap like twigs. A number of cars were destroyed when the trees came crashing down. The biggest symptom, though, was that service on the Long Island Railroad was brought to a stop. Penn Station, which sits underneath Madison Square Garden, was closed at about 9 p.m. last night because the station simply couldn't accept any more commuters coming in, and they were waiting outside in lines. There are horror stories that abound today in the New York media about commuters who did not get home until 3 o'clock this morning. So now, of course, the hysteria is whether or not New York was the recipient of a hit by a tornado. The Weather Service has to investigate that. Well, for our last story, if you're a Jet fan and you're somehow thinking that perhaps Tom Brady, who is the quarterback for the New England Patriots, is going to have difficulty showing up at the new Jets Stadium this Sunday at 4:15 p.m. to play the Jets, don't worry. This is as a result of his car accident last week. Here's a picture of the car. It was actually a fairly serious accident. Brady is a picture of him right after somebody took with a cell phone. He was actually shaken up. There were two passengers in the other car, the driver and his father. Apparently the father, who was the passenger, is quite seriously injured and has taken a turn for the worse. But that car that we saw, can we bring the wrecked car up again, please? This is an Audi. It's an S8 sedan. You don't have to worry about Tom Brady not being able to get to work because Audi has already replaced the car for him. The chief of Audi US, Johan Denishin, said, "We have put him in a new car." He said Brady was one of Audi's